Well, good morning, everyone. This is Natasha Telger with Illinois WorkNet, and thank you for joining us today. We have our Summer Youth Employment Program follow-up webinar, and if you have any problems for any reason with your audio, you can always call into our conference call number. It's listed at the top of the screen, and you don't need a passcode or anything to access that phone number. I just simply call in. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Tammy Stone.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for participating. It looks like we've got a really good crowd, and of course we made this mandatory that you participated. Basically, what the intent of this webinar is to get everybody on the same page of where we're at with the Summer Youth Program and to give you information regarding closing out the program. The agenda, we'll go through it just briefly. There's a DCO quarterly report that I'm going to show you. That was a lot of the intent of this, and that's something that's due October 30th. And we'll walk through that and what needs to be filled out on that and what we expect in that report. We're going to discuss a feature that has been added in Illinois WorkNet, and I believe that this has been sent out to you guys, is client outcomes. And that's something that our management and director has been asking as far as outcomes. What happened to these clients after they have completed our program? Now, this is unfortunately was added, not too terribly long ago. So this is something that an extra thing we're putting on you guys to have to go out and do. But to support this program and to hopefully get it funded next year and have an opportunity for continuing this type of a program, they really want to know what happened to the clients. And so we'll walk through that and how you access that and how you put the information into that. Exiting clients, I know some of you have already exited. If you look at the bottom program results, you guys are killing it on enrollments. We did really, really well with our enrollments, and we're really excited about that. We're at 104% placement right now. Pretty much everybody has either met 100% or is in the 90% percentile. We only have, I think, 2 agencies that are still at 80 percentile for enrollments in the program. So we did really, really well with our enrollment numbers. We have about 782 that have been marked as either completed or exited at this time, and that's what we're going to talk about during this webinar also. And then worksite placements. I am sorry, that enrollment number right there, disregard that. I have to figure out where that one came from. But the pre-assessments, we have 2,480 pre-assessments that are completed. So we've got 96, oh, my screen's kind of jumping around here. We have 96.99% completion in the pre-assessment. So with your pre-assessments, we are almost at 97%. And we have a total of 77 clients out there that have not had a pre-assessment done yet to date. And then with post-assessments, we are at 85% of the pre-assessments. So we have 367 clients that are sitting out there that have not had a post-assessment. And then if you add the 77 that has not done a pre-assessment, there's about 439 clients sitting out there in the data system that needs a post-assessment or a pre-assessment and post-assessment. So that's something I want you guys to take a look at on your client basis, and make sure, some of your clients may have started off, or I know you're going to have some that maybe went to work for 2 or 3 days and then dropped off. And you're not going to be able to do pre-assessments or post-assessments with that. In the exit, you can indicate that, and we'll walk through that screen. But when you exit them, you can indicate that they, exited early, no pre-assessment, no post-assessment completed on them. But we're looking pretty darn good, I think, with that too, especially with the pre-assessments. And I know some of the clients, the post-assessments, that is going to follow still, and we're still going to have some of those, and that number will drop, and we'll have, more post-assessments, completed. On the other side of it, we have our expenditures. And with our expenditures, the total grant amount was $6.48 million. And based upon what you guys are giving to us and the grant expenditure report forms, we're showing $4.18 million expended on this grant to date, which puts us at about a 64.6% expenditure ratio. And then based upon the payrolls that you guys have uploaded, in our budgets, in our planned budgets, we had $4.67 million is what we're planning for youth wages, and that 1,000 line item for youth wages. With the payroll uploads, we're at $2.99 million. And so we're at about 64.1% for wages paid out for that use line item. And so this is the reason we've been doing a lot of communication with a lot of you and seeing where you're at with your expenditure rates. And I know this does follow too, because the enrollments were a little bit later, and we are still increasing those numbers as we go, and we anticipate. But we've been doing a lot of follow-up with you guys on this because our expenditure rates are just at 60%, and so we want to really see those rates increasing considerably. And we'll discuss that when we get down a little bit further as far as the extensions, budget or the program extensions and budget modifications. But so anyway, to go back on the agenda, we're going to discuss on the exiting the clients, on how you're going to report success stories, and that information, a lot of you have done that already, and we'll kind of go over that again. We're going to discuss the program extensions and the budget modifications, and then a follow-up discussion on payroll and making sure that you're getting your payroll uploads in. We evaluate the grant expenditure report form based upon your payroll uploads, and if the payroll uploads aren't in the system, we can tell that based upon your grant expenditure form if there's a big variance between what you're reporting on the GER compared to what's uploaded in payroll. So at this point of the game, we really want you guys to be in sync with your fiscal records and your fiscal payroll, and then uploading the payroll into Illinois WorkNet. And then we're going to have a discussion on the trial balance versus your grant expenditure reports. And we did an evaluation on those. We asked you probably about a month ago to send in your grant expenditure report along with a trial balance. And we evaluated what your trial balance looked like compared to that. And so Sheila's here with me too, and we're going to discuss exactly what we're looking at and what we need in those reports. Okay, so to get started, I am going to open up the DCEO quarterly report. And I'm going to have to share my screen here first. Share my screen. Perfect. It was right up there. Okay, if you have worked with DCEO before, you're familiar with it. It used to be called a project status report and a financial status report. Well, the beginning of this year, they consolidated that into one report. So we're calling it the DGR, Department Grant Report. It's what this particular one is. So it's Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Grant Report, and it consolidates both the PSR and the FSR. And what I've done in this particular report is highlighted really bold in yellow. There are downloads, and I should have addressed this to begin with. In this webinar, I'm going to go back to that, there are downloads on your left-hand side under File 6. We have participant outcome instructions. We have a success stories instructions. The DGR is the instructions for this report we're discussing right now. And then the one below that, the 130710XX DGR, that is the report I'm taking you to right now. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And then we have instructions for success stories and additional ones. So please, before this webinar is over, download all of those documents and save them onto your computer. But the 13071 that you're going to be downloading is this particular report. And if you look at the top with the way the file's named, it is a 13, which is the grant number, 0710, and then XX. And that XX is to be filled out with your grant number. So if you're 01, 02, 23, whatever, your grant number may be. When you complete this report, you're going to rename it and save those X's with your grant number. And then the DGR is just Department Grant Report. And then I already put in, this is for the report ending the end of September, so it's 09/30/2013. So once you complete this report, all you have to do is resave it with the grant number name up here. And then basically you'll go into this and make the corrections for the next one, and then you just change the end date to the new end date for that grant period. But you're going to have to do two things. You're going to want to save this as an Excel file, but then you also need to save this as a PDF file, because it's going to need to be signed by your authorized signature. So down here at the bottom of the report, there's a signature line right here. And so your authorized signature, whoever's authorized to sign your grant documents needs to sign this along with their name and title and the date. And then this needs to be sent back into us, PDF back into us, but when you PDF it back into us, you have to keep the same title for that document. So we want to make sure that you're sending it back in with that same file name as a PDF and with it being signed. Okay, to get into this document itself, like I said, this is a consolidation that we did, our DCEO did at the beginning of this year. I've highlighted in yellow all the areas you need to fill out. I already put in the grant number. Replace the two X's again with your grantee number. If you're 01, 02, 03, that's what's going to go in those X's. You're going to enter your name, organization name. The DCEO program, this is something I probably should have had filled out, but you could just put SYEP, Summer Youth Employment Program, in here. So you just type in SYEP. And then prepared by whoever the individual is that we would have to contact if there's any questions on this, that needs to be there. So if we need to make any corrections or revisions, that's who it's prepared by. And then, of course, we need a contact phone number and an email address, and then the date prepared. Okay, and then the next part, all of these boxes that are in here at the top part, disregard until we get to the last report, and it says check box if this is a final report, and then when we're ready to do that, you're just going to click on that and check it as a final report. Now for this first report that's due October 30th, it's probably not going to be a final report for any of you guys. We're going to discuss closing out your grants, and some of you guys are ready to close out. But I'm guaranteeing that probably all of you guys have costs that go into October. So this report only goes through September 30th. So you're going to have to do another report for your final closeout report that's going to probably just be for the October cost for those that aren't doing an extension. Okay, and then at the bottom here, we've got the cost categories. And this is something you guys are familiar with because of the grant expenditure report. Your youth wages, program services, contractual, other, and admin. You're going to put your DCO budget amount that's in your grant agreement in this section right here. So make sure you reference your grant agreement because we'll look at that. And that you're putting in what you have in your signed contract with us as far as your budgeted amount. Previously reported expenses. We have done cash requests for you guys originally. And this is something that you guys complete with the grant expenditure report also. So the previous reported expenditures should be all of your costs for all of those line items through 9/30. So it's going to be from July 1st to 9/30 is what you're going to be showing in this line right here. Your current reported expenses, well, actually, I take that back. I'm sorry, I need to switch this. The previous reported expenses is going to be zero because you don't have anything prior to July 31st. So your current reported expenses is going to be what's going to be from July 1 through September 30th. So let me clarify on that. The current reported expenses is your expenditures through the end of September. Previous is going to be all zeros. So in here you're going to have zeros all the way down. And I'm not entering here. And then your current quarter expenses is going to be what you've expended in each of those line items as of the end of September 30th. Accrual amounts, this is something that I don't think you guys need to fill out. Sheila, what's your opinion on that?
I mean, if you have expenditures that you've kind of incurred the cost, but you haven't actually paid them out yet necessarily, that's what your accruals would be. You can put them in. I mean, you should put them in. It's not really an obligation. It's something that is an actual expenditure, but just might not have been reported in your accounting system yet, or it's not actually paid, but it's in the process of being paid.
Okay. But it was accrued before the end of 9/30. So it's not something that's been accrued in October. It's something that was accrued before the end of September. And that would go in that particular line item there. And then the next one is just basically a list of documentations to support your costs.
Which that should just be a trial balance.
Which would be your trial balance, exactly. And what you're going to need to do with this document is you're going to have to submit a trial balance with it. So your trial balance needs to be cumulative. It'll be from July 1st through September 30th. So you need to run a trial balance for that period of time.
And it's got to match.
Yeah, and we were, Sheila said it's got to match, your trial balance has to match what you're showing in here as far as your reported costs, and then if you had accruals in there, your accrued costs also.
Yeah.
Correct?
And
Okay.
if it doesn't, you need to provide to us some sort of a document that bridges between what your trial balance shows and what you're showing in there in your current period costs.
Okay. So that is the expenditure section of this report. We go down, there was no match requirement, so I just have NAs in there. There's nothing that needs to be completed as math. Your grant funds received, this column right here is calculated based upon what you put in here. So that total amount transfers down in here to your grant amount received. Your previous cash request here is going to be 0 because we have not requested any cash prior to this quarter. Your current cash request is something that Sheila and I have done for you. So when we receive your grant expenditure report forms and when you do your payroll uploads, we look at that basically every Wednesday. We can do cash requests Wednesdays, and
But they need to put that in there.
yeah, but we do the cash request on Wednesday. So we look at that on Wednesday, and the document that I took the payroll off of, did the payroll off of, was based upon your payrolls of yesterday around 2:30. So all the payroll information that you uploaded in WorkNet is what we have looked off this time for our cash requests. But anyway, so in this particular document, you have to put 0, we'll put 0 for the first one. What I'm going to do is, since we've done the cash request for you guys, I am going to send you a copy of the cash requests that have been made for you, so you're going to have a printout. And then the amount that has been requested from September, from July to September is what's going to go in this current cash request amount here. And then that's going to calculate the remaining grant funds that's still sitting with us, basically, that we haven't given you. And then the grant funds on hand is going to be the amount of money that you have not obligated or expended based upon your cash request. So that is going to be the amount of money that's still sitting in your accounts. Is what's going to be the cash on hand for that. And on the trial balance, well, should that be reflected on the trial balance? Okay, so on your trial balance, that should show, the cash on hand should show in your trial balance also. And we're going to go into this a little bit in depth. We're going to talk a little bit more on this whole section of that and exactly what we're looking at for that. So, but anyway, so in this particular area, and I did not highlight this area. I'm sorry, I forgot to do this one. This needs to be completed by you guys, and I will send you what the cash requests were so far to date. Okay, Section D, the program income and interest. If you do have this in an interest-bearing account, you need to document any interest or earnings that have been realized as a result of the money that's sitting in the account, so that would need to be completed in that section. Okay, and that takes care of it for the fiscal section. Hope I didn't confuse you too much on that. The next section is going to be your performance measures. So what you're going to document here is, in the required, that's going to be what's in your grant agreement, the number of individuals that you said that you're going to put in work experience is under the required section. One of the other measures we said was the work readiness improvement, a minimum of 70%. In this particular case, you're going to document your pre- and post-assessments that you have. So with the pre-assessments, we'd like to see 100% with your pre- and post-assessments. We realize that that's not going to always happen because you may have clients drop out of the program prior to them being able to complete. But we want to have the number of individuals that have completed their pre-assessment, and then a minimum of 70% of improvement of that. So the required number, and then, I should have stopped this, forget about the estimated area. We're not going to put anything in estimated. We're only going to do required. So the previous actual would be the 0 because we have nothing there. And then the current actual is the number of individuals that have improved on their work readiness. So let me give you an example.
Hey, Tammy, just a quick question sorry to interrupt you, but there's a couple questions that have come in. Is it for this overall document? When does this due?
It's due October 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so an example of this would be number of youth served and placed in a workplace. So let's say in your plan, you plan on placing 65 individuals. It's the required amount. Previously, you have 0 because this covers the July 1st through September 30th. And then say you've got 64 that you've placed. So you've almost completed 100% of your plan. Okay, for your work readiness, of those 65 that are in there, let's say that 59 have completed the pre-assessment test.
That's the required field.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the required. So 59 have completed it, and that's your work readiness improvement. And of those 59 that have completed that, let's say that in the post-test you had 39 that had a minimum of 70% or above on the post-test. So what we're going to look at here is you have 59 people that did the pre-test, and of that, 39 completed the test, the post-test, with a 70% or higher score on that. So that's what you're going to have on that. And then the percent of youth fully completing the work experience. So you enrolled 55 people, and you had, say, 61 that completed. So you had 3 people that actually dropped out prior to completing, okay? So in this particular case, 65 people enrolled in work experience. You had 4 people that exited early just because they didn't like the job, they got another job, they went on vacation and never came back to the program, whatever the reason is, people did not complete the program. So that would be what you put in that particular area there. So let me just go over this one more time to make it clear. The very top one, you're required. This is going to be the number of people that you placed in work experience. The number of people planned, I'm sorry, the number of people that you planned to place in work experience, and then the actual is the number that's actually been placed. Then below that, your work readiness improvement, this 59 is the number of people that have taken the pretest, and of that, 39 people completed the post-test with a minimum of 70% or better on the post-test. And the last one is percent of people completing work experience. So you have 65 people that have been enrolled in work experience, but only 61 people completed. And the others were exited for a different reason. Okay, so I hope that's clear. If not, please send me an email or call. The first one is dealing with your plan numbers based upon actual placed. The last one is dealing with the number that was placed based upon those that actually completed. Okay, and then after that, there's nothing else in this document. You don't have to do anything with the job count certification, so that's all NA. That doesn't apply to our program. There's a section here for success stories, but you guys are going to be putting your success stories in WorkNet. If you want to put something in this, you can, but we would want to see those in WorkNet. And then if you have any concerns or feedback or anything you want to provide, you can type that in this area here. And then otherwise, it's just signing in the document, put the name and title and the date. And the signature, like I said, needs to be the authorized signature, so whoever's authorized to sign your grants. So I've made this a little confusing, but this is, if you have any questions, please let us know. Okay, I'm going to go back to the webinar. Stop sharing my screen. And now let me get to. Okay, the next thing that we're going to discuss is the process for recording clients' outcomes. But before we get to that, WorkNet established a process for you guys to basically close out your clients. And I'm going to move this over here so you can see it. In Illinois WorkNet, you can go into, and I'll show you where it's at when we go into the system itself, but you can go into the system and you can, oh, sorry guys. This is tricky to moving my documents around, sorry about that. Hey, Natasha, can you get your document in? Thank you very much.
Which document did you need? Sorry.
One with the closeouts to completion, the completion document, and how to mark them as complete.
This one?
Yeah, thank you. And then can we maximize that?
Yeah, let me try.
Just full screen it?
There you go.
Okay. In Illinois WorkNet, and when we go through this, I'll show you, there is an area for your clients. Basically, we have a couple functions for exiting clients. You can exit a client if they didn't complete the program. If, like I said, if they worked for 2 days and didn't like the job, if they went on vacation, never came back, for some reason they didn't complete the work experience or do the pre and post test, you would exit them. But for clients that have completed the work experience and that have done their pre-test and that have done their post-test, you can set their status to complete, which is this document right here, this little key, this little note right here. So you would click on that, and what that will allow you to do is set your clients, and if you look down here once it's done, to a complete status. Okay, and you can also do it under eligibility and outcomes, but the advantage of doing it on this particular set, if you click that key, and I'm going to take you down to the other document as I show you what comes up. If you click that key, it's going to take you to something that looks like this, and it's going to give you a list of all of the clients in your system. And then what you can do is you can click on them individually, and I can't do it in this document, but you can click on them individually and set them as being complete, or if all of these individuals in this list have completed the program, and what I mean by completing the program is they've completed the work experience, they've completed the pre-test, and they've completed the post-test. If they've done that, they've met those requirements, then you can click this box right up here, and that'll select all of them. And then once you've selected all of them, let me see if you can set it, and it's not in this document, but you can set the status as complete for all of those individuals. Oh, we're really moving around here now. Okay, let me get rid of this full screen. And then let's go into the actual site, and I'll show you what that looks like itself. Okay, Natasha, I need the screen share now. Thank you very much. Okay. Make sure I get the right document here. Okay. Now this should be the format that you're used to looking at Illinois WorkNet. Where I'm at is the SYEP tools, and I'm on a customer. And like I said, this was the section here, set customer to complete. It won't work on this because these individuals, and let me see here. It's going to give me an error message on this particular one. But in your system, what you would do is set this status to complete for your organizations, and then it's going to give you a list of clients that you're going to be able to select, and then you'll be able to tell it to set it to complete. And I'm having a hard time with this right now. So no records found in this particular criteria, but when you do this, it will work.
The reason Tammy's using the edit server to show you so that we don't share actual student information. So,
Natasha, what is your call-in number? I need somebody that needs the number for this.
I'll go ahead and put it in the chat.
Okay. I have somebody. Could you read it off for me? I have somebody here that's.
Got somebody on the phone.
Yeah, I got somebody on the phone. I could go back to the chat, but I didn't want to exit the screen.
It is 866
Okay?
821-1611.
Okay, thank you very much.
Then the other number to get in, don't you have to have
No,
a...
that's
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks guys, sorry about that.
Somebody be joining you shortly.
So anyway, basically you set the status to complete, and you'll get a list of your clients, and then you can select the clients you want to complete, or you can select them all. What I want to show you in this, though, is the other function that was added under eligibility and outcomes. I'm going to click on this right here. And this was at a request of our management, because basically they want to know what's happened to these kids after the program. You're probably used to seeing this section up here, which is your eligibility and your enrollment. And in your enrollment status here, you can also mark them as complete, or you can mark them as exited, or whatever applies to them. What has been added is program outcomes. So youth enrolled in the training program. After they've left your program, what happened to these guys? Did they go back to school? Did they get hired on a job? Did the youth enroll in another training program? Or does none of these apply? So like I said, this is kind of afterthought. This was just added, and this is a category that we want to start collecting for these individuals. So what you're going to have to do is go back into your client files for those clients, and then select whether they went back to school, whether they were hired on a job, whether they entered a training program, or if none apply, none apply. This is something, like I said, that our director's office is really interested in, and specifically for future funding, so that we can demonstrate what happened to these kids after they were gone. And like I said, I know this was you guys are kind of our test pilot with some of this, because this is our first summer youth program with this. We need results, basically, not just the results of them being placed in work sites and results of their pre and post test, but we need results of, what happened to them afterwards, after the program was done. So what we need for you to do is go back into your data systems and add this to each of your client files. And like I said, if you have a back-to-school program and all of your students went back to school, that's what you would do. You just go into this client file and put them as back to school. I know a couple of the grantees have had youth that are permanently employed as a result of this, and I think one in particular had 10 youth that were placed in jobs as a result of this. So you want to show that they were hired on a job after this was over, okay? And you can also, if you don't want to do the completion as a group, you can come into this on an individual basis and mark them as complete, and then also mark them as hired in a job or went back to school. Now, one of the things I do want to ask you to do, though, too, if you have somebody that is exited, we need a reason down there why they exited. They may have exited because they got another job. So please put a reason down there of why they exited. With the exited, too, they may have exited as a result of getting hired on a job, too. So you can mark that, too. You can put an outcome for them. Say they didn't complete your program, they didn't finish the pre-test and the post-test, but they left because they got a job, then you can mark them as an outcome, as the youth was hired on a job. Or the youth went back to school early, and they didn't complete the program here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense for you guys. And we wanted to show this. This is something that we really, really want you to complete, because this is pretty critical in some of the evaluations that we're looking at. And once again, that is under your tools, and it's under eligibility and outcomes, and then that's where you're going to document your outcomes, is right there. Okay, I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Basically, where we're at right now in the program is we're looking at the numbers of exits. Who's being exited? Are they being exited? Stop sharing here. Are they being exited as a result of not completing the program? Are they completing the program? And then with your completions, the pre-assessments and post-assessments, we're going to be starting to look at those. Let me get back to my webinar agenda here. So I guess I'm trying to bring this back in for you. Okay. So we're looking at pre-assessments and post-assessments, making sure that you have them completed. We're looking at the fact if they've been exited or have they been completed out of the system. The big thing we're looking at is your expenditure ratios. And like I said, I've been talking to a lot of people here recently regarding expenditures. We're going to be, starting the end of this week and next week, modifying grants, and then we're going to be de-obligating and reallocating. And I've already talked with several of you as far as what's going to be left over in your grants. We're looking at a November 3rd closure date. We do have a couple exceptions with grantees based upon the population that they're serving, and we'll extend a little bit longer. But that was set up in the original scope of work. So, like I said, I've communicated with you, several of you already on this, and we're going to be talking about doing the de-obligations. And then we also are going to have to modify everybody's grant regarding flex, because I've had a lot of individuals asking about budget modifications. We are going to probably put more flex on your budgets, so at the very end we don't have to worry about modifying the budgets for line items at the end. So we're going to do flex on everything but admin, but we're going to be, what you have to remember is the program requirements are at least 70% of the expenditures are on youth wages. No more than 10% of expenditures are on admin, and we're locking admin down. So that's one you won't be able to flex out of. But we need 70% of expenditures on youth wages and no more than 10% on admin. You can move money from admin to youth wages. You can move money from admin to program services. That's basically your only options there for the budget flex. As far as the payroll uploads are concerned, make sure you are timely with your payroll uploads, and make sure your fiscal office reports are in line with the payroll uploads. You can do, if you find that there's an error in a payroll, we can delete that payroll and you can re-upload it, and even just for a specific client. If you find a specific client was overpaid and you have to make that adjustment, but there's no more payrolls or something, we can make that adjustment by deleting it out of the Illinois WorkNet payroll upload and then you guys re-uploading it. But like I said, this is the information that we're really tracking right now. And we need to make sure that your payroll uploads are timely and accurate. We need to make sure that your grant expenditure reports are getting into us and are timely and accurate, because this is what we're basing our information on. And then the other thing we need to discuss is your trial balance and grant expenditure reports. And I'm going to have Sheila talk with us on this. We did request trial balances and expenditure reports a month ago. When you submit your grant expenditure or your DGR report that we walk through, you're going to submit that with a trial balance. And Sheila, do you want to kind of explain exactly what we're looking for when we look at those and what we've seen as examples?
Well, I mean, there's been just some minor things with the trial balances we received, and some people think of a trial balance a little different. Sometimes your system may not run what's called a trial balance. Some people run, like, I know off of QuickBooks, you can run what is called a profit and loss statement, and that pretty much is what we're talking about. But what it needs to be, whatever report you generate from your accounting system, it has to show all of the revenue that you've received for this grant up through, when you submit it for this period through September 30th. It has to be all grant that's received by you by September 30th. Now, there may be a cash request that was in the system that last week of September, and you may not have gotten that cash yet, so we don't expect that cash to be showing in your accounting system. But it has to show all the revenue you've received, whether you've expended that revenue or not. It still has to show up on that report. And any expenditures that you have put out or you paid out, whatever, for this grant particular project. And it has to be just for this grant only. I mean, it has to be a report that is a true reflection of what's happened on this particular grant program. And, I mean, everybody's system is different. If you do not have clearly identified budget items or expenditure account codes or things like that in your system that clearly identify this is what are some of the budget lines for these grants? Like that says this is the admin cost or this is the program services line. You need to tell us which of those things on your report, and you can mark it up right on that report before you scan it and send it to us, say, this is where this is reported on that grant expenditure report. This is where I said these expenditures are applicable to, because that's what we have to do. We have to tie this out line by line for this grant. If you've got any questions about whether or not your report is what we need, then by all means, please send it to me and Tammy. We'll look it over and we'll tell you if there's anything that's missing or if we see anything that we need to have changed or we have a question on. But because based on that, we will be inputting costs based on that information into our system for this grant. But it's got to match, because that's just the way our whole world operates. You have to be able to match what you've got in your accounting system to what you say on your grant expenditure report and what you submit on that DGR at the end of October for the period ending September 30th.
Yeah, and you can even handwrite it as long as we can tell what's going on with it. I mean, you can handwrite, okay, these codes are applied to the 1,000 youth wages. You know, these are the ones that are accounted to, you know, our admin, the 5,000 code. So we have, you know, a lot of times these will come in with handwriting to adjust it. There needs to be some sort of a crosswalk that we can tell, okay, this is how they're charging it to the line items that we have in your budget for that. And we've got a couple questions that are coming in. Why don't we go ahead and address some of these questions? Let's see. Natasha, can I pull this question box over? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So we can see these?
Okay,
how about those with extensions to 10? Oops.
Hold on, I got it.
Disappeared. Okay, thanks. How about those with extensions to 10, 30, 13? When is it due? I'm not sure what you're talking about. The department grant report is due October 30th. If you look at your grant agreement, there's a report deliverable schedule in there, and it's going to tell you all of the reports due. You guys don't have very many because this is very short. You have a production report of your grant department grant report. We had PSR and FSR, so I'm going to transition to that. It's department grant report, which is your PSR and your FSR consolidated. That's due October 30th, and then there's another one that's due January 30th, and then your final report is due February 15th. So it's 45 days after closeout. Okay, what I wanted to discuss with you guys right now, we have a lot of grantees that have completed their work and that are done. I know you're going to have costs into October. So the ones that are completed, I'd like to close you guys out so you don't have any more responsibilities with this grant. What I want to see is everybody has to submit their department grant report by October 30th. And that's the one we walk through with the yellow on it, along with a trial balance. It has to be in by October 30th. For those of you that are ready to close out, like I said, I'm sure probably all of you still have cost into October. For those of you that are ready to close out, what we can do is you can resubmit that report again, say November 15th, the middle of November, as a final report. And then what you will do with that particular one is check the box as final, and then we'll close you guys out.
They have to send a trial balance that's final.
Yeah, you have to send a final trial balance along with that correlates with your line items. So for those that are ready to close out, that's the process. October 30th, and then in November we'll close you out. For those that received extensions, you're going to have to do the regular, what's in your grant agreement. So basically you're going to have a report due October 30th, you're going to have a report due January 30th, and your final closeout report will be due February around 15th for that one. So those reports are due regardless if you have an extension or not. And then let me see if we can get back to the questions.
So the next question was from Angela, and I believe the question was, is it possible to have the main screen for the SYEP tools just show the enrolled clients instead of the ones that are completed or exited? And what I've done is I've gone ahead and screen shared my screen, so please just Tammy confirm that, yes, you can see my screen.
I can see it, yep.
Okay, and so what I've done is I've gone to the SYEP tools, And I'm not going to scroll around because this is the live site, and I don't want to share any customer information. So what I've done is I've gone to my SYEP tools, and you can see the show search options. And I just selected enrolled and search, and it'll filter out all those people to show the ones that have been identified as enrolled. Okay. And then the next questions were about does flex mean that our budget will be increased?
No, it does not. What flex means is you have 5 line items in your budget, and right now you have 0% flex. So say you overexpend your youth wages. Our system doesn't like that very well because we don't have any flex on it. So what we're going to be doing is putting flex on those so you can transfer money, basically. So if you needed to transfer money from admin or expend more money in youth wages and take it out of admin, you have that capacity. We're not going to put any flex on admin, so that means you cannot increase your admin. You can only have 10% admin. But this would allow you to be able to move money around in your budget line items. The only thing I need to caution you on is 70% is the requirement for youth wages and no more than 10% on admin, but admin is going to be locked down anyway. But if you needed to move money from program support to youth wages or admin to program support or admin to youth wages, you can do that. You know, in some cases too, we had people that maybe budgeted around 79% in youth wages, and they realized they didn't have as much time to spend it, so they're coming in maybe at 72%, so they may be able to transfer some money out of youth wages down to supported services if that's where they needed it. But you need to make sure that you're spending at least 70% of your total amount on youth wages. So there's no increase. Flex does not mean an increase to the budget. It just means the ability to not have
fluctuate between line
fluctuate between line items. And it'll make it easier on closing out too, because otherwise we'd have to do a modification and all of your line items would have to add up to what your actual expenditures were. Accrual or cash basis. This is from Sheila.
What about the $3,200 limit on client wages?
3,200 limit on client wages, any flex. And I'm assuming that you're talking about going over their client wages is what I'm anticipating. And really the 3,200 amount was used as an average cost for clients, and that included everything. So the 3,200 is not really relevant when you're just talking about the youth wages. We use that in the initial grant setup as far as average cost per. So I'm not sure. I guess you'd have to be more specific. Send me an email and be more specific of what your question is regarding that, because that was used as a gauge for determining average cost when we were setting up the grants. Okay, we have a question. Let's see. Is 10% admin based on 10% of the actual expenditures or 10% of the original grant amount? The 10% admin is, we want to see it on expenditures. There may be a slight bit of flexibility in that, and we'll have to work out on an individual basis. But the 10% admin is, we want to see it based upon, you know, your expenditures. And if there is some extenuating circumstances, you know, we're going to look at it on a one-on-one basis for that. But I recommend that you try and hold fast to the 10% admin on your expenditures.
Next question was about the cash to accrual.
Accruals or cash basis. And I'm not 100% sure what that applies to.
I don't know that there's any real defined way that they're supposed to report it for this program, but most of the grants that we deal with, we do require them to report on an accrual basis, because that's a more accurate reflection of what's really going on. And, you know, it'll show your actual expenditures more closely. I mean, if it causes you, like, some headaches or severe migraines or whatever, then, you know, I mean, there's no real hard and fast rule, I don't think, on this program that says you have to use accrual, but we prefer it.
Okay, and then I've got Helen, SGA, will we be able to extend our program to 10/31/13? Yes, we have done, we're looking at closing down the program November 3rd. with the exception of a couple of grants that were extended at the original start of it. So we're looking at a November 3rd closeout date. So that should hopefully answer Helen's question. What format do we use for budget modifications and when is it due? I'll be working with you on an individual basis. If we're doing the obligations, then we're going to have a document that's going to show the amount and the line items we're deobbing from. If we're looking at just as far as the flex is concerned, that's going to be done probably internally. So some of the budgets, some of the people that are done and have expended all of your money, there's probably not going to be a modification that you're going to directly have to do anything with, but everybody's going to be modified because we're going to put flex on these grants. So everybody will have a modification. It just depends upon where you're at, what type of a modification you're having. So if it's a deobligation, then we'll be working with you on that, and we'll give you a specific form to fill out. Otherwise, like I said, with the flex, it gives us some latitude for not having to have your expenditures match exactly what you budgeted, and that's going to help for the the grants that have already expended, and maybe had to move some money from admin to program support, or maybe some program support money to youth wages, that type of thing. Let's see, the next one.
Well, Angela, that's a WorkNet issue. What she's saying, what Angela's saying.
Okay.
About
how long
the
should a
screen.
student work to be identified as a completed work experience? Okay, how long should a student work to be identified as completing work experience? You need to have at least one payroll for them. We would hope that they've been working, a couple weeks, but there has to be one uploaded payroll for the youth, and then to be considered completed, they have to have the pre-test and the post-test done. So that's what we are considering to be complete, at least one payroll uploaded and a pre and a post-test. For the budget mod has to be. Is there a threshold percent or dollar amount before a budget mod has to be done?
Well, right now it's based on whatever your amount is you have in your budget. If you're going to go over any of those lines, you would need a budget modification. If you have a better idea of how much you think you're going to spend for the whole program for this, then definitely talk to Tammy about what you think those budget lines should be. Because then when they're doing the mods to the grants, they can do the budget mods in addition to doing the flex percentage mod at the same time.
Right. And like I said, I've been working with the grantees that indicated that they wanted an extension. There are some grantees that are done that, you're finishing your program, but you still have funds available. And we need to know that, too, because we need to reallocate. We want to be able to show and we have shown great results with this program. The guys have done a great job with enrollments. Now, like I said, we're just working on the expenditure side. So if you have money left over, let me know, because we will need to do a budget modification and deobligate that money as soon as possible. So like I said, I've been working with those that have indicated that they want an extension, or that know that they're going to have money left over. So if you know you've got some money left over, please let us know as soon as possible so we can realign. Okay. Threshold on percentage of budget mods. Let's see, our next question is, what if we don't spend all our program, youth and program expenses? Will you then decrease admin expenses proportionately? More than likely, yes. Yes, we're looking at reducing admin expenditures proportionally with what has not been expended in the youth wages and program services. If we flex any money to a different line item, does that also change the budget amount we report on our DGR and grant expenditure report? On the DGR, your budget is going to be what's your approved budget right now. So whatever you have in your grant agreement is going to be your current approved budget. You're going to show your expenditures based upon where they've been expended, and that's going to be based upon your trial balance. But like I said, just keep in mind, 70% is youth wages, no more than 10% admin, and then the other areas, program services is, can be flexed around too. So I hope that's clear. Your budget is based upon what's in your current approved grant, and then your expenditures are based upon really your trial balance. Okay.
People typing.
We have a few more people typing. Hopefully I didn't make this too confusing for you guys. We really want to get everybody together. We're getting to the end of the program, and you guys have done an excellent job. You really have. We're really excited about the work that's been done out there. Oh, success stories. That's another thing. We make sure that you are entering your success stories in Illinois WorkNet. Part of the attachments that we provided includes how to access the success stories. And I think Natasha, I'm not sure, she might be going to the instructions there. But you need to please include success stories. And one of the things we want to make sure that you do is make them, don't do like a one-liner. We've had several that have been submitted that are just like one sentence. We need to make sure that they're brief, but they're comprehensive and they're detailed. So when you're including your success stories, please make sure that they're detailed. But you know, a paragraph or two, if you can do that in your success story, that would be great. And then pictures, we love pictures.
We have instructions that are included on the page I just showed you. It's in the SYEP guide. I selected participants. That's on the participant tab. We have a whole section here for SYEP success stories. We have a link to the success stories. We have instructions. And within the instructions, it describes, you know, some tips for writing a great success story. And then, you know, pictures, just as long as they're, you know, appropriate work type, not selfie type success story, or pictures would be preferred.
Probably shouldn't use a Facebook snapshot or anything like that.
Yeah, not the kissy lip selfie thing.
So yeah, please submit those, and make sure though that you have authorization. So you make sure you have the signed authorization from the client if you're submitting. If the client can submit themselves, and there's instructions in there too. If you want to help them self-submit, they can submit their own success story. The main thing is just to make sure that they're complete stories, and they're not just, you know, like a one-line sentence of, you know, I really love this program, have it again next year. Nothing like that. So we want you to make sure you complete that. And the other thing that Natasha reminded me of is the surveys, the employer survey and the youth surveys. Make sure you're getting those complete. Those are not measures that we're using, but against you guys or against the programs or anything, but they're measures we're using for ourselves to how can we improve? How can we improve the process of this program? How, you know, what can we do that would help the employer side of it? What could we do that would help the participant side of it? And so that's what we're using those for, is in the program design for next year. Fingers crossed that we get this money again. How can we make this even better for next year? You know, like I said, I've been very excited with this. I think, you know, with the push that we had and the late start, and that was, you know, as a result of the state fiscal year, you guys have done a bang-up job. It's done, I think, very, very well. Once we can get the expenditure side of it to match the enrollment side and the placement side, we're going to be in very, very good shape.
We have a few more questions.
Okay.
If we have funds left over in client wages, can we have clients work longer?
You can have clients work longer. Like I said, our deadline is November 3rd is what we're looking at for the last date of clients' work. So yes. And I think that was, I think, you guys didn't have a lot of money left over, if I recall. So yeah, if you need to go into, you know, a little bit into October to finish that out. But November 3rd is the drop dead date for that.
Success stories.
How many success stories should we aim to submit? You know, that's up to you. Just, you know, submit the good ones. I mean, you know, it's up to you how many you want to submit. I would say, you know, if we could get 3 to 5 from each agency, I think that's pretty darn good. Will there be a provider survey? And that's something that we really need, is a provider survey too. And that's something I don't think we've developed yet, but I think that's a great idea, and I think that we should do a survey of the providers, because you guys are key partners in this whole program. So yeah, we'll put something together for you guys. And you know, going along, it's a woulda, coulda, shoulda. I mean, as we've gone through this, like, oh darn, I wish we would have incorporated this into this program or that. And the more feedback we get, and you know, and recommendations, I think the better we can make it run for the next year. Is there employers, where's this employer survey located?
Yeah, Natasha showed her. Right there, she's got the links.
Okay, I wonder if that's me. Oh, Natasha, did I just knock you out?
No, you're fine.
Okay. I had something come up on my screen. Okay, so that's the link there for the employer survey?
Yes. It's
Okay.
available through the work experience section, and it's down, as one of the steps, request employer program post survey. And there's a link there, as well as a link where, and information where employers can submit their success stories as well.
Okay, she's got the 2 links up there for you too, in the chat box.
Right, they're to the same thing. The second one is the one that's more of a cleaned up version. Okay, are there any more questions?
And just basically to wrap it up, the report that's due October 30th, the department grant report, please get that submitted to us by October 30th along with the trial balance. And like we said, the budget section is going to be what's in your approved grant agreement. Your expenditures should be, match up to what's on your trial balance and what's being reported on the grant expenditure report form through the end of September. For those grants, if you're ready to close, would you please send me an email and let me know that you're ready to close? And then we can work with you guys to close this out in November. For those organizations that are ready to close but have a little bit of some money left over, please let me know what amount of money is left over so that we can redistribute that money and finish up this program. For those that are, have extensions that we provided the program extensions for, I'm going to be working with you guys, especially those that have already determined that they're going to be deobligating. I'll be working with you guys for that modification process. And then internally, we're going to modify everybody for the flex so that when we do close out, we're not going to have an issue with your expenditures not meeting your grant amount, and that will have some flexibility in that area.
There was one last thing.
Can the kids complete a survey value add on your website that includes their current status, e.g. back in school or permanent placement?
And then you put something else.
Perhaps 3 to 4 months after the program is completed. That would be something, I guess, that we would have to determine through Natasha and WorkNet, if that's something. And we'd have to check with our management, too. So basically what you're asking, if there could be something out there in WorkNet, and in 3 or 4 months, if the kids could go in and access it and say they got a job or they're back in school. At this point, we're putting the onus on you guys to follow up with your clients and to document whether they're back in school or employed after they've left your program. So that's where you have to go into your client caseload and go into your outcome section and indicate what happened with these clients. To give you a better assessment from their perspective. Yeah, send me a note offline, and that's something we can talk about. Maybe, like you said, a survey that's done 3 or 4 months down the line. I'm not sure what kind of a response we might get from something like that, but that's definitely something we can look at, is surveying the youth that were in the program maybe 3 or 4 months down the line and see where they're at. I'm not sure on the response on that, what would we get, but that's something we can definitely consider. Is there any other questions? And please, I know it's a little confusing with you guys on the report, the grant report. If you have any questions, please send me an email or give me a call on how to complete that. So we're just wrapping up. We really appreciate all of you guys' work. You've done a wonderful job.
There's one more question.
Did you hear the response to the question regarding leftover youth wages if youth could go longer? Yeah, send me an email or give me a call on that. Yes. I mean, we can go, like I said, we're wrapping this up November 3rd as our deadline for wrapping up, minus the agencies that had written something in the scope of work originally. Yes, you can continue your use through October to burn up those wages if need be. But Nicole, please send me an email and communicate with me directly on that because I want to know exactly what your plan is. What format do we use for budget modifications and when is modification report due? Like I said, with the budget modifications, I'm going to be working with you guys directly for deobbing, so I'll be emailing you. If there is not going to be a deobligation, then there's probably not going to be a formal budget modification. It will be something that we're going to be doing probably internally. Just for the flex, we're doing internally, but if there's going to be any deobligations, then we will be working with you directly on that. And then, like I said, too, if you're done and you do have money left over, even if it's, a couple $1,000s, please let us know because we want to make sure that, we're reappropriating this and that it's expended. Like I said, the only concern that we've really had here recently on this is the expenditure ratio. And like I said, we're tracking, your expenditures based upon your payroll uploads and your grant expenditure report forms. We're looking at your percent that you've expended on youth wages compared to what you've budgeted. And we factored in, because I know when youth wages, you have the employer FICA and workman's comp, so we've allowed for that in there too. And that's something that should be showing up on your grant expenditure report under youth wages is your employer workman's comp and FICA. So if there's no more questions, do we have one more? For the report, how long should a student work to be identified as complete? Once again, to be identified as completed, you can exit them, and exit them for a reason that they only worked 2 days, they didn't do a pretest, they didn't do a post-test. But if you're marking them as being complete, they have to have a payroll upload. They have to have at least one payroll upload, and they have to have a pre and a post-test. So when you're going in and marking a client as complete, if they haven't had those elements, it's not going to let you mark them as complete. So I hope that answers your question on that. We have another one typing in. Again, thank you guys so much for participating. If you don't have any questions, we're going to go ahead and end this session. For those that have questions, go ahead and stay on. We'll continue to answer questions as they come in. Please, like I said, email me if you have any questions or concerns, and we'll be working with you guys directly. Sheila's been invaluable to me on the trial balances and the fiscal side, and so I rely on her considerably when it comes to the financial side. And I know she's reached out to quite a few of you with questions on your trial balances compared to your grant expenditure reports. We're, again, going to be entering your costs here soon. Once we feel comfortable with what you're reporting on your grant expenditure reports based upon your trial balances, we're going to be entering costs in our accounting system to report your expenditures. So thank you guys again so much for your great work, and